I will try to indeed keep to the 10 minutes, and I will just try to highlight some key lessons from the Smart Rural 21 project. And I think it very much links to some of the key messages that Irene was highlighting. So I think there are some synergies between the two initiatives, of course. So I am the coordinator of the Smart Rural 21 project, and probably many of you, oops, sorry, it's jumping too fast. Many of you already saw me at different occasions, but and probably heard part of this presentation, so apologies for that. But if it's a repetition, but I thought to quickly brief you on what this project is doing and before moving on to the specific lessons. As you know, it's a project which was supporting or aimed to support villages across Europe to develop smart village strategies and then to help them with the implementation of those strategies. So we were meant to select 17 villages that was foreseen. I really don't know, there is normally no timing, but sorry if I need to keep jumping back. So normally there were 17 villages to be selected, but there was a huge number of applications, or over 730 from Europe. So at the end, we selected 21 villages, and so more than foreseen for direct support. But beyond that, we were actually supporting a much larger number. Some 200 villages who could follow and come along with us through this process. And this comes back to the very practical exchange at the level of villages and cooperation. So we really try to engage with a much larger number, those who applied, and they actually are still taking part in different events of ours. So this is a graph on how to become a smart village, which is essentially the journey of our project. And I don't want to go into much details of this. I just wanted to give a snapshot of this, this graph, which kind of describes the journey that we have taken with this project, starting from the selection of the villages through direct support with experts, which I will come back to. These are national experts, and some of them actually are also sitting in this room. And then really facilitate the exchange among villages so they can visit each other. Of course, COVID unfortunately hampered this process. Then there were some practical Smart Village Academy events with very much focus on villages. We were developing and helping villages to develop smart village strategies and then take action, very concrete action, which I will come back to again. And we are now approaching towards the end of this project, where we are having regional workshops. We already had 2. It's always organized in cooperation with the selected villages. We had one in Tomaszyn in Poland, and then in Stans in Austria. And the third one is coming up, if anybody is interested, on the 27th of January in Ostana. So this is really just a snapshot. Again, just a very brief review of the objectives that the different villages, selected villages, planned in their strategies. You can see, and I think it resonates a bit with this discussion, that there is a lot of focus on economy, mobility, governance, and here people, because they are kind of cross-cutting those which are specifically targeted at capacity building. It's less relevant in that sense, because actually it's built in to all the other thematic areas when it comes to the implementation. And we also made an attempt to classify them according to the long-term rural vision. And obviously, because smart villages is very much connected to stronger areas, which is capacity building with people, but also services, this stands out as a key area of action. So this was really just to provide a snapshot, and then I would like to try to share with you some of the lessons on what it means to strengthen resilience in these communities. So firstly, as I think it was highlighted today, it's very important to note that many local areas really lost people. So when it comes to the participatory approach, and when we say like people have to be engaged, I think we should be really highly aware that there are many communities who don't have almost people to engage. And of course, we cannot leave them behind. So we cannot start from a point where we say like, please engage your whole community. For instance, in the village where we work within Poland, it's in a very remote area. It's actually people moving there from an urban environment to set up an agricultural cooperative in the local area. And this process of engaging the local community people, and actually it's a very depopulated area, it really takes several years because there is hardly anyone left from those who lived there before. So I think when we discuss the participatory approach, we have to take this as a kind of starting point. Then I have to say that when you look at the stakeholder engagement, sometimes even with some of the villages we worked with, or when we dig deeper into the cases, then you see that sometimes it's easy to put on paper, like how local communities are engaged, but actually it's not always that shiny and brilliant, the local community engagement when you actually start to work with communities. And to really understand what happens in the community, I think you really need to go at the local level. You really need the people for capacity building who speaks the language, who knows the different relationships. And I could talk for ages about the different models of governance that emerged from this project. But I think it's very important that any kind of support should really take account of the specificities of the local area and really look into the dynamics of the people who are living there. Because sometimes it happens that one person dominates the whole process. Sometimes it's really a smaller group. Sometimes it's consultancy. So it really varies. And I think there is a lot of support which can be provided, but it's unavoidable that someone goes down to the local level, which we also tried with this project. So the other one is, of course, that communities are used to certain kind of methods, but there are certain groups, especially youth, that really need some kind of creative approaches to engage. It's not the same way. Of course, you cannot just make them sit in a room and discuss things with them, but you need to think out of the box, and you need to also support communities to think out of the box when they work with the different kind of communities. So these were some initial starting points. And then I would like to share some lessons, which at first sight might sound obvious, but then I will share with you like how we actually implemented it or tried to implement it in the context of this project. So one thing is that, of course, many villages have plans, but the experience showed for us that you still need capacity building. And it's not so much to develop a formal plan, which our village is not so enthusiastic sometimes to do and to invest in the paperwork, if you'd like, but really to help the village to think in the long term, not just to think in individual initiatives like individual actions or smart actions, but to think about a vision where they want to be in 5-10 years. So it's more the approach that we need to get through rather than the formalities. So this is something we learned. A recent lesson is really that it's best to request to develop strategies if there are some kind of support provided with it. So villages can often get quite frustrated if you are just asking them to develop strategies and then there is no real funding and support attached to it. So the two should kind of, the support framework should go hand in hand. Then the other thing is what I already expressed on the previous slide, so I won't go into details, that you really, really have to be present at the local level. It cannot be done distantly, this capacity building and animation support. And then we really need to watch out for the specificities of the local governance structure and who is in the lead and why. The third one is obviously that we need kind of generation of ideas. And again, it might sound obvious, but the truth is that when you ask villages, they already have a lot of smart ideas, but sometimes they also need eye openers. So you really need to bring experts to them who can offer solutions that they haven't thought about. Of course, experts can come from other villages as well to avoid this kind of past dependency in the villages. What we strongly try to do is really the cooperation with other villages and networking. The way we did it, that we do very informal sessions with villages, not just the selected ones, but a wider group of villages. And essentially, these are, for instance, we just had yesterday with the Italian village, they present their example and then the others can really ask questions. It's only the participants are really only villages, and we did it on purpose. We didn't really open up those discussions because we wanted them to exchange in an informal environment. So they need this inspiration, and it's very, very helpful when they get support for this. And we are also doing cross visits, which we also financially support. And I think this is a point, a final point maybe on this one, which Irene mentioned, is as well, that these local strategies, of course, have to be linked to higher level strategies, the smart village strategies. So we need to help the villages to connect to the regional level, to the national level, and think about the synergies, and especially where they might have access to more funding. So these are some of the key lessons, and I won't go into details of the slides that come, but I think it can be and will be shared later on. But just to say that there are some really hands-on support that we identified with villages and where we supported them. And while there is a large variety of needs in the different villages we supported, there are also some common topics and similarities, which I won't go into details now because we don't have the time, and then Rika asked me to keep it to 10 minutes, and I will try to do so, but it's on the coming slides, and I am happy to explain like what are the key thematic areas where support was requested by the different villages, but I won't go into details of that. So thank you for this.